purpose of the psychological schools of thought, all of them, any of them, was always to draw a better understanding of life, what it means to be human, understand human behaviour, where behaviour comes from, how to modify behaviour, how to learn, how to grow, how to develop, how to become more valuable. Now, here's the thing. Over the years, we've had countless men and women have tackled the schools of psychological thought from multiple perspectives and thus created a wide range of psychological schools of thought. So you're going to have some people who would say that, one school of thought is right, is the main school of thought, the main perspective, that other schools of thought perhaps are slightly more irrelevant. But what I'm going to say is that all roads lead to Rome. If we ourselves want to develop a balanced, grounded perspective in life, we want to be subjecting ourselves to as many different perspectives as physically possible. So to illustrate where and how the psychologies have evolved over the years, I want to share with you what I'm hoping you're going to find to be quite an insightful and very, very simple diagram here. Let's just say that we have lots of people from all corners of the globe, all looking at a certain aspect of our human experience. Let's say it's the number 8. All right, now, as you're looking at this digit on the screen here, what do you see? Right? Is it the number 8? Does it mean something else? You get to determine. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. What I see the number 8, but that's just from where I'm standing. That's just from my perspective. You might see something else. Because this guy over here, well, he's been walking up the mountains for quite some time. He's not had anything to eat for a few days, and all he can think about is food. So from his perspective, all he can think about is food. And when he looks across and sees what I see as a number 8, he sees a pretzel. Now here's the thing. What's going to happen if I go across and critique his perspective? What are you talking about, young man? That's not a pretzel, that's a number 8. I'm right, you're wrong. Well, here's the thing, from where he's standing, he's right, and I'm wrong. He can't see a number 8, he's looking at a pretzel. Well, what about if this guy up here, he's coming more from a medical, neuroscientific perspective, neuroscience looking at, atoms and cells and DNA and all this kind of thing, and he's just been at a 3-day neuroscience conference or something like that. So he comes out and he just goes for a walk up the hills, takes a seat to review some of his notes, and all he sees here is a symbol of DNA. That's all he sees. That's his perspective. That's his outlook. So now I'm standing down here and I'm saying, what are you talking about? That's not DNA. It's the number 8. And he says, well, from where I'm sitting, I see DNA. Well, who would I be to argue apart from extremely ignorant? Because if that's what he sees from where he's sitting, then that's what he sees from where he's sitting. All right. So what I'm better off doing if I want to understand his perspective is asking him for more information, please. But then we have old Mildred here, and she's been out doing her grocery shopping. And Mildred, what a lovely lady. I say, Mildred, what do you see from where you're standing? And Mildred says, oh, Kane, I just see the number 8. And isn't it true that we would just get on with so many more people in life if people were just like us? Don't we just love those people in life who see things the way that we see things? And we have a tendency sometimes of dismissing and not liking those people who see things differently. All right? There's a person-centered approach that we can take towards people. Just as well, we've developed and built in an entire section around this idea in one of the final sections of the course. So then we have Josephine up here, and she says, Kane, Mildred, Barry, what are you guys talking about? That's not a pretzel, that's not DNA, that's not the number 8, it's wave. As wave's that symbol, and to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure what wave actually is. Just done a little bit of Google research before I was creating this slide, what the symbol or the number 8 also represents, and she says it's wave, so I'm not quite sure what wave means. You might know what wave means, but this guy here, he knows. This is John the salesman. He knows it's the infinity symbol, because in some cultures, this is translates to the symbol of infinity. So that's what he sees, to infinity beyond, kind of like Buzz Lightyear. Now I can't see this, But that's not what I'm looking from. I'm just seeing the number 8. So is Mildred. Me and Mildred are forming a tag team now. We're getting on great. But then we've got Joe up here, and he's just saying, no, it's lucky 8. This means lucky. Lucky. I've climbed a lucky mountain. This is what I'm seeing. And then she's just saying 8. And then we have this person up here who says, no, that's not the number 8. It is in fact 2 loops interacting with each other in a synchronized fashion. And he's operating right out of the rational part of his mind. Now, all right, I'm not going to drag this on, but let us now consider the psychological perspective and the varying schools of thought, right? If we were to view life as a mountain, all right, all joking aside now, right, I'm just warming up. All right, what is it that we're actually all looking at? As human beings, we all are asking questions. How can life be lived in the most effective way? How do the interpretations that we make in our minds impact our actions, our behaviours, our outcomes in life? What is it that human beings are actually motivated by? How are we driven? What are we made up of? Are human beings their behaviour, or is there something else going on? Are we our personalities, or how are we motivated? How are we driven? Now, this brings us to the varying schools of psychological thought, because depending upon where people are standing, they're going to be looking at different aspects and different components of the human experience. So, Dave over here, well, he's finished eating his pretzel, and what he's looking at is the biological perspective. He's looking at veins and bones and DNA and neural pathways and all this kind of stuff, which is fantastic. That's what he sees. He sees micro. But then we'll have this guy here who's looking, he's up in the hills, and he says, well, human beings, we are feelings, we are emotions, because he's feeling quite emotional right now, and that's the perspective that he's coming from. But then we'll have Mildred. Mildred is a little bit more developed in life, right? We know that Mildred's lived around for about 85 years, and she says that life is more about the evolutionary process. We're going through the stages of development, and it's about who we become. We've got to acknowledge where we've been, we've got to acknowledge the process in between, and we've got to look at where we are going. Life is an evolutionary process. But up here, she's got some opinions about this. Well, what about thought? What part does cognition play in the process? Well, matey boy over here, he's a car salesman. He's looking at human behaviour because someone just done something that offended him. So this is relevant to him. So he wants to open up a new psychological school of thought as well. And this lady here, she's all about the experience. She's all about pushing herself to the max, not leaving the world in the same way as what it was when she first entered into it. And all she sees is humanism. What does it mean to be human? Why are we here? What is the purpose of life? What makes for a meaningful life? And so on and so forth. Because where we're looking from, what our perspective is, determines the questions that we ask. Isn't that right? And then we have perception, because sometimes the way in which we see things isn't always the way in which things are, but sometimes the way in which we see things is just the way in which we see things. It might not always necessarily be the way in which other people see things. So if we want to develop a deeper, broader, more holistic perspective, we've got to gain and draw appreciation of other people's perspectives if we want to better understand the human experience. Are you with me? Philosophy. So, psychological perspectives, all schools of thought seek to help us simply better understand life. It's not about putting ourselves in a box. We're not just made up of blood and bones and DNA, but we're not just feelings. We're not just part of an evolutionary process. We're not just our thoughts. We're not just our behaviours. We're not just our perceptions. We are human beings. We are not just our philosophy, but all these things merged into one give us a holistic overview of what it means to be alive. And this is what the varying schools of psychological thought seek to explore and explain, how it is that we can live the most effective lives. So I've shared this idea with you to hopefully help you to identify your current perspective. All right, it might be the case that you focus more on this school of thought or this school of thought or these various schools of thought. And whilst I'm not going to be going into depth in every single school, I'm going to be going relatively deep into the ones that through my experience I've found to be the most prominent and the most life-altering.